Okay, real quick, because I'm going to Smash World Tour this weekend, I need to make a YouTube video because I'm looking at Twitter and no one's talking about this shit. There's crazy Goomwave drama on the timeline. They're beefing. People are beefing, and Goomy is silent on the issue. First of all, press 1 if you're confused as to what the fuck is going on, because I feel like people are confused, and everyone just kind of generally knows that some bullshit's going on, but nobody knows what the fuck is going on. This was the big... I feel like people are so not knowledgeable about what exactly happened at Summit. No one's even like talking about it because they don't even want to broach the issue because it's so complicated. And that's basically the case. So, okay, let's talk about what happened. And I'll talk about this from my own perspective too. So I brought 2 controllers, okay? I brought 2 controllers to Summit. I brought my main controller, which is a beautiful Starlight Gold that Nez made me. And it's just standard. It's got, you know, it's got notches, but it's a normal motherboard. It's not very heavily modified, you know. And then I brought my Goomwave, this bad boy, which is crazy. There's a fish swimming in the A button, right? There's a fish, you know, it's got the mouse trigger, but most importantly, what makes it crazy is that it's a Goomwave motherboard. So I brought both. Now, I've been playing with this controller, this Goomwave that I got at main stage for a couple weeks, and I was having some issues with it. I was missing a lot of things. I would miss fast falls. I'd get a lot of accidental double jumps. And I hit Zain up. Who am I, right? So I hit Zain up and I go, because I know he's got a Goomwave. And I go, hey man, I've been having these issues with my Goomwave. What about you? And Zain goes, dude, me too. I've been having all those same issues. And we're like, oh shit. Okay, but it turns out Gooms is coming to Smash Summit. And so we're both kind of like, all right, well, we're going to go to Smash Summit on Wednesday. Gooms is going to fix up our Goomwaves. Everything's going to be good, right? It's all going to be good. It's going to feel great. And we're going to be able to compete with them. Well, you're going to be able to compete with them, Zain. I'm going to be able to play friendlies with mine, you know, whatever. But then what happens at Summit, it turns into this whole fiasco. And I'm sure some of you guys saw some of the stuff on Twitter. There's different builds, different branches of the Goomwave code going around. And different people affiliated with the project are saying, this is the build you got to use. This is the best one. And if you haven't seen Twitter... So it turned to this whole thing, you know, so you've basically got the Rienne build, aka, I don't know if there's like a name for it. And then there's the build that Gooms is saying is better. Different people came up with different pieces of documentation. Violence was kind of the mediator in all this. Shout outs to Violence, Eric Lee, old friend of mine, used to live in NorCal, now lives in Arizona. There are several write-ups kind of documenting all the things that happened. This is from Gooms' perspective. This is from Violence's perspective. Just to get this out of the way, if anyone's wondering, how does this apply to you? Especially if you bought a Goomwave. If you bought a Goomwave, I'm just gonna get this out of the way. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, this is the thing you need to know. You should get a flasher. You should get one of these bad boys. If you bought a Goomwave, if you were a Goomwave owner, you should bookmark this Goomwave flashing guide. It's actually not very hard. You just buy one of these bad boys. This lets you just... this and the cable basically let you update the code running on your Goomwave. It's very cheap, and apparently this is very easy to do. It's like on the, you just need a screwdriver, try with a screwdriver, open up your controller. You're gonna be good. It's gonna be fine. That's what you need to care about. You need to be able to update your own firmware on your Goomwave, because otherwise, as bugs get fixed, you're gonna be left in the dust. Because the big issue everyone's having right now, the biggest issue, is that right now, it feels like for most top players and for most players in general, you need to go to an event that a controller modder is at that has the capability of doing this to get the code updated. And because there's so many different versions floating around, and people are saying this version's better, this, that, and the other, you're gonna want the ability to do it yourself, and it's actually not very hard. But let's talk about what actually happened. Essentially, if you trace the timeline here, there's the Gooms was at Summit distributing what he called the 11.21 patch. See this 11.21 patch. And the 11.21 patch was, if you guys saw, the patch that Goomy rolled out at main stage to fix specifically the problem that iBDW was having at main stage. And this was the patch that was distributed at main stage, and this is the patch that Gooms was giving people. Yeah, there were other people, TLDR, there were people who got the 11.21 patch, myself included, by the way, who were basically still having some wonkiness. And so this other patch that was floating around attempted to address those. Now, I'm not going to go into my opinions of which patch ended up being better. I'm not going to say that this person had the correct version going around. You know, this code branch was better. This code branch was dog shit. I'm not going to get into that, largely because I don't actually even think that there is a perfect branch yet. I've learned a lot of things about the Goomwave that make me feel like there is still going to be, I think there is going to be at least several week or several month period where people continue to iron things out. So I'm not going to get into what I think about which version of the code is better. But what I do think sucks is something, I'm going to reiterate what Sora said yesterday on Radio Melee, because we had Sora on Radio Melee yesterday. By the way, everyone should go watch that episode. But Sora was basically saying the thing that sucks ass is that, like, and dude, again, like, no disrespect to the Goomwave team. Goomy, Gooms, Rienne, everyone involved with the project is insanely talented, and they are really, really wonderful at what they do. But it's such a nascent project. I think I'm using the word nascent correctly. It's such a nascent project. The people coming together to work on this thing are controller modders. That's what they do. That's what they know how to do. But distribution, version control, marketing, these are all problems that I think they're just beginning to solve. And what I think sucks is that Goomy has been completely radio silent. First of all, I know half of you mother think Gooms and Goomy are the same person. So first of all, there's that problem. Like, first of all, people don't even realize the guy that is chiefly in charge of writing the code has been radio silent, and people assume, I have to imagine that there's a non-trivial chunk of people who assume that Gooms is the guy. No, Ams is not rocking a Goomwave. There just has to be, right? There has to be a non-trivial chunk of the population right now that assumes Gooms is the word of God on this thing, because isn't Gooms Goomy? They're the same people, right? They're not. They're not. Gooms is just someone working. Gooms isn't actually a programmer. Gooms isn't working on the code. So you've got Goomy, who's chiefly in charge of writing the code, but he's been completely radio silent about this stuff. And then you've got two people affiliated with the project. And again, I'm largely echoing what Sora said on Radio Melee here. You guys should watch that episode. I don't think I could say it better than him, but what he basically expressed was like, look, this thing was, first of all, these things are being sold at a very expensive price point. So people better feel like they're getting their money's worth. And what people are getting, or what people thought they were getting, was like the last control you ever need. But now you've got people affiliated with the project, people affiliated with the project at an official capacity, squabbling with each other about which version of the code is better. So you've got shit like this where, you know, it just turned into this whole thing, right? Like, got my controller, like, iBDW was literally getting his controller flashed day after day after day by different people, different branches of the code, says, finally, okay, finally, this is the version I'm going to use. I've just, you know, and then, you know, Rienne comes out and says bad move, and then Gooms comes out and says poorly aged tweets. And it's like, these people are supposed to be essentially coworkers, right? They're not really, but they're all affiliated with the project. And the guy that's in charge of the project has been completely silent. Let's look at Goomy's Twitter. So Goomy smash. Goomy, not Gooms, but Goomy, you know, last tweet November 9th. There's no documentation. There's no write-up anywhere about what the difference is between the patches. You have to parse through these tweetlongers. That's all you got. So without even getting into which patch I think is better, any of that stuff, because then everyone's got their own little opinion. So, and it's all largely anecdote. This is basically just the Melee community discovers version control and documentation and commenting your code. You know what I mean? Like, this is the shit that they teach you when you get into software engineering and you don't think it's a big deal. You're like, I don't need to comment my code. My code's godlike. What are you talking about? I don't need to document shit. Why do I need version control? Why do I need to push? Why do I need a code review? What? And I fully believe that everyone is doing their best. Everyone's doing their best. Everyone's doing, I mean, I love that Rienne is actually providing, you know, these are actual oscilloscope graphs. You know, it turned into this whole thing. Because again, Violence was distributing the code that Rienne was saying was better. And then Gooms had his code. And I just think as a competitor, you know, what's up, PTAS? As a competitor, like, dude, you do not want to be at a tournament. I mean, I just gave up on the whole thing, and I was like, look, I got my good controller that I know is good. It's not a Goomwave. I'm just going to use this bad boy. But like, imagine you're iBDW. Okay, thank God he won the event. But imagine, you know, you're somebody where you're coming, and every single day you're seeing new shit on Twitter that's saying you got to reflash your controller, and you got to get this code or this code or this code, and you're flashing it several times, and flashing, by the way, means basically updating the firmware, right? It's just got to be horrible as a competitor, you know? I don't want to go to a tournament and have to worry about learning essentially a new control scheme. Not really a new control scheme, but getting the feel of your controller every single time. You know what I mean? It's just, and yeah, you know, TLDR, that's what we told, I was talking with Zain on Wednesday, and we were like, you know, by the end of it, we were kind of like, He was kind of like, look, I'm just going to use my Cardano controller because it's what I know. I know it's going to work. There was a small chance. Zain was saying there's a small chance because for Zain, the big benefit would have been if he used the Goomwave. He gets free pivots because the pivots are so easy on the Goomwave. And he was saying that if I have to fight HBox, I might use my Goomwave to get the empty pivots. But unless I'm fighting HBox, almost no chance. And we did a lot of testing. I think there are some weird things that I think are still very strange about the Goomwave. I think it is still, and this is all stuff that's been discussed, you know, this is all out there. On the earlier builds of the Goomwave, on everything except the build that got pushed out literally on Sunday that Violence helped kind of distribute. For example, there's an emulated pod setting. You guys all know about the emulated pod setting that you can move up or move down to kind of make your controller feel more broken in or less broken in. This was never written anywhere, but up until the most recent build, a higher number actually meant less pod. It's as crazy as it sounds. I got my controller and I was like, ooh, this thing feels too loose. I got to turn the pod down. And so I turned the number down and it felt worse and worse and worse. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And finally I hit up Evil Labs, and Evil was like, oh yeah, apparently lower number equals higher pod and vice versa, which was never written anywhere. This was never published anywhere. No documentation about this. You would naturally assume higher number equals higher pod, not higher number equals lower pod. So there were a lot of instances with the Goomwave where, you know, it kind of just felt like, you know, it's solving don't get me wrong, it's brilliant work, and it's doing work that I think will be relevant for years to come. You know, in particular, I think notch calibration is a wonderful feature. I don't think top players should have to worry about filing their notches every couple months. I mean, I think there's some stuff in the Goomwave that's just such a good idea. Part of me almost wishes the Goomwave was, you know, remember when like Hacks put out Melee 1.03, and I kind of had this thought that was like, God, I wish we could have the features that just everyone universally agreed was good, and then the other stuff we could talk about and maybe put them in the future. I feel like it's too much all at once. And I kind of feel that way sometimes with the Goomwave, where it's like, man, there's so many features that were added all at once that, like, I wish they just rolled out one that just had notch calibration and button remapping. And then they slowly, because, like, capacitors are fine. And I don't know, I was talking with somebody yesterday and they were even saying, apparently the Goomwave has a built-in capacitor. This was never documented anywhere. I just learned yesterday that there's emulated pod and a capacitor built into the controller, which on top of natural pod, that's like your controller is going to feel so loose almost immediately. And this is why you're starting to see people like Wizrobe saying, oh, it feels like you got to switch out your potentiometers like every week, every other week. And it's turning into this whole thing. So I don't know. This is all to say that, like, okay, will Panda Controller end up being the better Goomwave once it gets firmware updates? Well, it is first of all, it is firmware updates out of the gate, and you don't need to buy a complicated mechanism or anything like that. Not that the flasher that Rienne recommends is complicated. It's relatively inexpensive. Should be pretty easy to do, but the Goomwave the Panda Controller is going to be USB. So brain dead simple. Plug it in your computer USB, you can run firmware updates. But what I also think is just really important is that the Panda is an established team that has a marketing arm and has, I don't know about arm, but you know, they are approaching this thing holistically. They've got a rollout plan. They've got a plan for version control. It just feels like it's going to be a more mature product, and there is not going to be, I mean, you can't have all these different versions floating around with the chief guy on the project being radio silent. You know what I'm saying? You know, imagine there's a company that's putting out a product and the CEO, I mean, this is oversimplifying, but imagine the CEO is not saying shit, and then he's got two VPs that are essentially beefing with each other on Twitter and say, no, my version's better. No, my version's better. It's like, you know what I mean? It just doesn't sow trust in the product. And again, I really don't want people to come out of this being like, damn, these people suck ass. This guy, this person, blah, blah, blah. That's not the point. It's growing pains. Okay, it's growing pains. And I think one thing that's very exciting about the Panda controller is that there will be a central, you know what I mean? I feel like everything I've seen out of Panda shows that they have a level of maturity and a level of business sense that, like, they're going to be able to prevent these sorts of things from happening.